unless you're just particularly athletic. But it commits you to the prayer. And it brings the soma in, the body, which is another reason why you're saying it aloud. Bringing the body and mind and you're magnetizing. Commits you to the prayer in a way that just saying it or saying it quietly doesn't do. The second stage of the prayer is what we call mental prayer. Now, looking at the way our mind functions normally, we have been trained or mistrained or conditioned to let the mind go wild. And our mind is full of all this stuff that we've been fed. The old computer maxim, garbage in, garbage out. And so a lot of what's going on in the head is just nonsense. What happens is when we begin to commit ourselves to the prayer, is we start to change the background noise in our head to where it's not, oh, I hate my boss. You know, that just cut me off. Or, why is this line moving so slow? Which are all forms of self-considering, where they come from thinking we're more important than we are. The world and the universe owes us some kind of special treatment. And we find that out through this observation. This is what the Gospel of Thomas talks about in the very beginning, where Jesus says, if you get the meaning of these words, you're not going to taste death. It's a pretty nifty promise. And then he goes, but the Jesus of the Gospel of Thomas and of all the Gospels is not a windbag or given to religious language. He's talking a very scientific language. He outlines the next steps. He says, if you watch, look, keep on looking, you should look until you find. Find, you're going to be disturbed. And then you're going to be amazed. And then you'll rule over the all. And after that, you can rest. What he doesn't say is that you're going to do it again and again and again and again. But this is the process we're talking about. You watch. And as you watch, you stand in the checkout line and this poor underpaid cashier is not moving as fast as you think they should. You just start losing your cool. 5 minutes ago, you were super spiritual, you know, on the verge of sainthood, and now you're just a whiny little brat. Not that you're in a hurry. It's not that you're going to do emergency surgery on somebody. It's just you want to go home and watch TV, and this person's inconveniencing you, and the universe owes you better. And you start to see that you actually think that way. And you're disturbed. You do this for a while, a bit longer, and then what you notice is that when you catch this feeling, this self-considering, it diminishes in its effectiveness. And now you're able to stand in the line and do something else, like maybe just remember yourself, or say a prayer, or at least just not be a jerk, which for a lot of us is a huge spiritual step. And it's pretty awesome. So then you stand in awe. And then for a minute, you start to create this place, this magnetic center, this place of watching and observation, which connects you to the nous, which can now rule over the all. And then you can rest. And then you're going to go do it again. Tomorrow. And the next day, the next thing that disturbs you. So the second step of the prayer is called the mental step. This is when you've been engaged in the prayer for long enough and you've established a background of watchfulness and a background of prayer. And you'll start to notice that when you're saying the prayer, your mind is connecting with it. You're actually saying the prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. And this isn't an emotional thing. It's not what we think of as being the emotional thing. It actually connects to the true emotional center, which is higher than what we call emotions. What we call emotions are these eyes gone wild. There's a true passion that lives here. And that's one of the things, if you start reading the Philokalia, which is the great collection of texts about the Hesychasm traditions. Sometimes the language will trip you up because they'll say, they talk about taming the passions, taming the passions. Now, most of us think that being passionate is a good thing. Greg's passionate about doing his podcast because he's passionate about the great work. It's a good passion. But when the church fathers, and excuse me for the language, but most of them were fathers, talk about passion, they're talking about these things that carry us away. And that anger when you stand in the checkout line, poor woman is just taking longer than you think she should, that little anger that takes you off, and you ride with it, and you start off being annoyed, and you get more annoyed, and then she has to do a price check, and now, now you're going to miss the first 5 minutes of your TV show, and then you're getting more, and then you get up to the line, and now you're just absolutely rude to her, she's rude back, and you're just riding this little passion off into happy anger land. You go home, somebody cuts you off, and then there's your partner waiting for you, and you take it out on them, and you've just ridden this passion all. That's what the fathers mean when they talk about passion. They're not talking about your passion for the work, your passion for art, your passion for making beer. Those are all wonderful and healthy and normal things. But what happens is you're replacing these passions with a magnetism towards the news. And you start to be consciously in the prayer. And that's your job at the second stage, is just to be praying and deliberate. We don't race through these. I've seen people do these like mantras, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, I rose from your Son, Lord Jesus Christ. You can do 1,000 of those, but you may as well be watching, whatever, Jerry Springer, if you're not being conscious of it.
I'm curious, you talked in terms of passionate and passion towards good work, passion towards this. A lot of people, especially some of the Bergen Masons, who must subdue our passion, tend to interpret that in a more, a base way, I guess. And I'm just thinking in terms of things like, for instance, and I suppose the question answers itself, but I am curious, things like gambling, sexual addiction, all that other kind of stuff, that things that we think are, more or less are big issues, and not even big issues, are our own personal amusements and stuff like that. Do we put that on the same scope as, say, for instance, the anger? Are you saying that just the everyday activity, the things that we do? I'm just wondering how far this gets applied.
Well, we don't know. You don't know, and I don't know whether these things that we're doing, because we haven't learned discrimination. The thing that we can do right now is watch. Where does this come from? When the disciples asked Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas, should we fast? Should we do this? And he refuses to answer this. He says, don't do what you hate. Now, had he been a modern teacher, he would have offered them, a DVD series on 15 steps to, with a book and a calendar.
Hi, my name is Anthony Robbins.
Right. And he said, don't do what you hate. And I'm not trying to dodge the question. I'm really trying to answer it because I think that the answer to that is individual and personal. And you don't know at this point how your head works until you watch it. And when you watch it, you begin to determine what is this rooted in. And is this healthy amusement? Is this an escape? Is this something else? What's motivating this? And you'll start to see this. There's nothing wrong with amusement. There's a great story about St. Anthony, the desert father, who most of us think is sort of being this like hardcore, skinny as a rail, never eating, always praying, grim guy. And